I would say where you live is critical to your health.
Understanding what's healthy isn't a difficult concept to grasp. You exercise, eat right, get enough rest, and that's a recipe for good health. But applying the word healthy to housing, that's not as cut and dry. And yet there are conditions or even hazards that can exist in a home that can make it unhealthy. Now, the whole concept of healthy housing is an important one because it impacts everyone. After all, we all have to live somewhere, whether it's a townhome, condo, apartment, or even a single-family dwelling, it's home. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we spend a lot of time at home, more than 14 hours each day. And according to the US EPA, young children spend about 17 hours there. So naturally, we want our homes to be healthy, safe, and hazard-free as possible. Unfortunately, not all homes are safe. There can be hidden hazards, such as radon gas, or obvious problems like broken windows or a leaky roof, which can lead to mold growth. In this video, we're going to examine the concept of safe or healthy housing. And ironically, one of the best ways to do that is to show you what's unhealthy in housing. By seeing unhealthy conditions up close, you'll be able to identify problems or potential problems yourself. We'll also go out in the field and examine a variety of single-family homes and apartments. You'll see firsthand how the experts look for hazards and signs of unhealthy conditions. But first things first, there are 7 ideal qualities or principles a home should have to be considered healthy. Keep it dry. A healthy home has no interior water problems from plumbing leaks or problems on the outside like a leaky roof or clogged gutters. Indoor humidity is less than 50%. Keep it clean. A healthy home has minimal dust, dirt, debris, clutter, and garbage. It should also be cleanable with resilient surfaces and contain adequate storage. Keep it ventilated. Exhaust fans to remove stale air, and a controlled source of fresh air that isn't drawn in from undesirable spaces like a crawl space or basement. Keep it contaminant-free. Many of the chemicals and cleaners you buy for your home can be harmful, and a home should be smoke-free. Keep it pest-free. You won't find mice, rats, roaches, bedbugs, or any other pests in a healthy home. Keep it safe. There are working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and no trip or fall hazards or electrical shorts. Keep it maintained. A healthy home is one where repairs are done in a timely manner before they become problems. Lead-based paint and asbestos are handled safely. The truth is, any home could have one or even more unhealthy conditions. And because these conditions can have a direct and potentially negative impact on your family, healthy housing is an important topic.
Well, according to the American Housing Survey, we know that there are homes that have severe and moderate physical problems.
Substandard housing often translates into substandard health for the occupants. A substandard home might be less expensive, but unhealthy, unsafe conditions have a cost.
We have to create, if we want kids to thrive, if we want them to learn all they can and be all they can, we've got to make sure that they've got a home that's healthy.
The healthy housing movement has its roots in lead safety. It wasn't until 1978 that the U.S. banned the use of lead as a paint additive in residential construction. Certainly a move in the right direction, but by then, the cost of lead poisoning in children was already too high.
Many children who have elevated blood lead levels will have trouble with language acquisition and with reading. There's also a behavioral component that we're just beginning to really understand. Very, very high lead levels can have quite dramatic symptoms. Children can have seizures, they might go into a coma, and children can even die from lead poisoning.
Comprehensive efforts over the years mean that lead's out of gasoline and paint, but it's far from gone.
We find lead everywhere. Lead has been added to wiring to make it pliable. Lead has been put into window caulk to make it pliable. Lead is used frequently in plumbing.
Changes in federal regulations are addressing lead problems, including the EPA's Lead Renovation, Repair, and Painting Rule. This rule has specific mandates about containing lead dust during remodeling work. It impacts most contractors and property managers that work with pre-1978 housing. Lead's not the only thing impacting children's health. Asthma, a bronchial condition characterized by wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath, is a serious problem and a growing one.
Over the last 20 years, the number of cases of asthma diagnosed in the United States has increased by 75%. And most distressingly, the greatest increase in the number of asthma cases diagnosed has been among children less than 4 years of age.
Unfortunately for asthma sufferers, the home is full of potential triggers.
Well, the triggers are the allergens, and allergens are things that come from pests. They also can come from pets, animal dander, tobacco smoke, environmental tobacco smoke, off-gassing of some of the fabrics and wood products, particularly formaldehyde off-gassing, can contribute to asthma.
Healthy home specialist Tom Neltner is familiar with asthma triggers. He sees them all the time in homes he's evaluated.
There are some other things that trigger asthma attacks but don't necessarily cause it. Mold is in that category. Mold triggers an asthma attack in some people but doesn't cause asthma.
When water leaks go undetected or aren't fixed, mold has a chance to grow. Finding mold often requires detective work because it may not be visible. You may only notice a persistent, musty smell.
We are just beginning to understand how mold affects health. We know that if there's mold in your house, you're more likely to have asthma. Not exactly sure how that works. It seems as though there is an allergen related to the mold that if you're sensitive to it, it makes you cough and wheeze and the presence of mold. We're also beginning to understand that mold has other adverse health effects. So I recently completed a paper with other colleagues that looked at the link between mold and depression.
Whatever triggers an asthma attack, the disease carries a cost. For children, it can mean absences from school, less time in the classroom. For their caretakers, it can mean time off from work, which can mean diminished income.
The cost of asthma is really high for individuals, for families, and for society as a whole. For the individual, there's a cost of managing a chronic disease over a lifetime. And there is also loss of, children not going to school, have more trouble in school later on. It's harder to catch up. Children who grow up to have chronic illness find it harder to get and keep jobs. So for that individual and for that individual's family, this is a terrible cost.
Asthma attacks can be reduced by controlling triggers in the home, like keeping pets off the furniture, regular cleaning and dusting, and no smoking in or even around the house. Lead poisoning, asthma, allergies, sinus and respiratory problems, these are just some of the costs associated with unhealthy housing. But one of the largest causes of childhood fatalities is unintentional injury, like a fall down the stairs.
Approximately 9.2 million children ages 0 to 19 go to emergency rooms for unintentional injuries each year. 3 unsafe conditions around the home that can lead to unintentional injuries include trip hazards, such as having clutter or throw rugs in places where people could trip over them, not having working smoke alarms, and also having water faucets where the temperature of the water is above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which can scald children and young infants.
Anyone with a toddler knows injuries can happen in an instant. Fortunately, there are a number of preventive measures homeowners can take that are low cost and effective.
There's a lot of things that parents and caregivers can do to protect their home and their children. One of the things that you can do that's a low-cost preventive measure is to have a safety gate at the top of a stairwell, particularly if you have children or infants. You can also purchase smoke alarms and have them installed in your house. You can practice a fire escape plan, which doesn't cost anything. And I think you also can make sure that all medicines and toxic substances are in locked and childproof cabinets.
There's a lot of documentation and research on healthy housing. Efforts are ongoing to quantify and measure the changes that families experience when they transition from unhealthy to healthy housing.
I would say where you live is critical to your health. The reason that I'm so interested in the effects of housing is because I believe that housing is like the fulcrum between the individual and the community. And I think that it's easier to think about modifying a house than it is to think about reconstructing a whole community.
Let's get a more specific picture of what this healthy housing concept is all about. Time to get down and dirty with a look at what's unhealthy in housing. Undetected leaks and moisture problems can be a home's worst enemy.
If you've got wet surfaces, it's likely to form mold. And mold and wet surfaces are going to be triggering asthma, coughing, wheezing, upper respiratory tract symptoms. And when mold is present, the Institute of Medicine reported that you'll also have hypersensitivity pneumonitis, which means some people can get pneumonia even from relatively low exposures. When you also get moisture, you're inviting in cockroaches, mice, and to some extent rats. Cockroaches need moisture on a regular basis. They need it to thrive.
A home that isn't clean is a home that isn't healthy. Surfaces in bathrooms or kitchens that aren't clean can attract cockroaches and mice. Too much clutter and debris can cause trip and fall hazards. And certain materials, such as old carpeting, can be warehouses for dirt, dust, and pet fur. So it's important that surfaces are cleanable.
You want to have surfaces that are non-absorbent and smooth so they can be cleaned up. So that makes it cleanable, but then you still have a responsibility to keep it clean. And when we mean keep it clean, we mean pick up the clutter, and we mean wash off the surfaces and remove that dust that may accumulate, and keeping it dry as part of that process.
If stale air inside a home has no way to exhaust outdoors, it's a recipe for a host of problems.
Well, we want to keep a home ventilated because no matter what we do, we're going to have contaminants in the home. Cooking makes contaminants, and then we have other things like a furnace or a stove that may make contaminants. So we want to be able to exhaust them out of the house. We want fresh air.
Poor ventilation means moisture is more likely to build up inside the house. Condensation forms on windows, and in cold climates, it can even freeze, forming indoor icicles. Contaminants in a home can take many forms, from household chemicals and cleaners to radon gas. The problem with many contaminants is that they usually aren't visible. Radon is a naturally occurring gas that can seep into a home from the surrounding soil. Long-term exposure to it can lead to lung cancer.
Keeping a home contaminant-free means making smarter buying decisions, that you don't bring in something that's going to go into the air. The biggest one is air fresheners. Well, I can't tell you that air fresheners are dangerous. When I go into a home and I smell an air freshener, I usually figure that the resident is hiding something. That a lot of times air fresheners are used to mask mold, cockroach frass, cat problems or dog problems. The other types of contaminants are really to think about safety, and that's the poisons that we may have under the kitchen sink that kids could get in. That's where keep it safe and keep it contaminant-free overlap.
Some contaminants are emitted from building materials. For instance, formaldehyde can off-gas from certain types of particle board and cabinetry. A home infested with roaches, mice, or other pests is a home that isn't healthy. Waste and excrement from some of these intruders can actually pose health hazards.
The health repercussions of a pest infestation is first and foremost asthma. Cockroaches trigger and cause asthma attacks, and they also have mice. Mice can trigger an asthma attack. Cockroaches are very tough to exclude from a home. They can get in through virtually anything. For mice, a 1/4-inch hole, about the size of a pencil, a 1/4-inch hole is enough for them to get through. Don't ask me how a mouse can do it, but the experts all say a 1/4-inch hole for a mouse and a 1/2-inch hole for a rat.
This is why it's important to make sure all service entry points for gas, electric, air conditioning, cable are sealed with caulk.
Along the baseboards or along piping, I look for what's called rub marks or grease marks. They're greasy. And what they do is they leave these scuff marks along the baseboards. And when you see that, that's a sign of rats. It's basically, if you got a white wall, you'll see these brown marks along the bottom. Sometimes homes make baseboards dark colors so you don't see it.
Safety in a home is a broad topic and one of the most important. One of the leading causes of death for children is attributed to home injuries, things like fire, trips, falls, and drowning.
What we typically call accidents really aren't accidents because most of the time they're preventable. So the injuries, the cost to that is, for many people, if you slip or trip or fall, it's not, if you're younger, it may be 6 months in a cast. If you're older, you may never be able to have that same quality of life again.
Safety in a home encompasses things like working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, no electrical shorts or exposed outlets, no trip or fall hazards like too much clutter, or area rugs without slip-resistant backing. Pool areas should be properly contained or fenced, and access to the pool area should have a lock or similar security. A family's safety can be compromised when a house isn't maintained. Repairs should be done in a timely manner before a problem goes from bad to worse.
We have homes that are falling apart because people aren't taking good care of them. They don't understand that you need to take care of that leaky faucet, you need to take care of the damaged sink, you need to take care of that drain line that's not going where you want it to. You've got to take care of it right away.
As you see, there's a lot that encompasses healthy housing issues. Now, many of us understand the importance of green building practices and how those are important for the protection of our planet. Well, healthy housing is important for the protection of our families.
I've seen families move from unhealthy conditions to healthy. It doesn't necessarily cost more, it's just a better landlord or a better condition of housing. You see the children just start to blossom.
Okay, you've gotten an overview on the 7 principles of healthy housing. And in the next few chapters, we're going to head out into the field with professional evaluators and see what they see. I hope you join us.